And Ken, with that, I think you can take it away.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Yvonne. So I am Ken Kraus. Welcome, everybody, to the Governor's Distinguished Manager Association. Today we are presenting the Tale of Two Journeys, a lunchtime conversation with OFM Director Pat Lashway and DES Director Tara Smith. I am the Secretary Treasurer for the GDMA. And just those that don't know me or where I work at, I'm the Assistant Director of the Audit Division for the Department of Revenue. As far as the Governor's Distinguished Management Leadership Awards program, it formally recognizes state government managers who demonstrate outstanding management excellence. Each year, state agencies nominate managers for consideration by a small committee of reviewers. Typically, the committee recommends 15 to 25 to the governor, who makes the final selections. Once they're selected as a GDMA Leadership Award recipient, they become members of the Governor's Distinguished Manager Association. GDMA is interested in hearing about the speaker's experience in public life, reflections on integrity, moments when their integrity was challenged, how to maintain a sense of integrity when facing adverse circumstances. And this year, our theme is transforming how we work. Just for some housekeeping, one, relax, grab something to eat, get yourself a cup of coffee or something to drink. This is sort of a time for you to hear these great speakers and leaders out there and just sort of reflect on your own journey and see how maybe we can improve. Today, all participants are going to be stay on mute, so please stay that way. We'll monitor the chat, but unfortunately, due to some time restrictions today, we aren't going to have time for questions. We will share the comments from the speaker with the speakers at the end of the session. And then also GDMA has a new LinkedIn site, so I'm going to plug that for you, and certainly go out there and like it. There's lots of these presentations will be posted in a video format out there, so certainly you can support it and by following it and go from there. And so with that, I think we've taken care of housekeeping, and I will turn it back over to you, Yvonne.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate it. I will do you the honor of letting you be unspotlighted. And thank you. And with that, welcome to our kitchen conversation today, everyone. As Ken shared, I am Yvonne Knudsen. I am the president-elect for the Governor's Distinguished Manager Association. This is my second year serving on the board. And before we get started or get too much into the next place of introducing the panel, I'd like to call your attention to chat, where I put a couple links, and I just didn't want to walk away from today without reminding everyone that it is Black History Month. I put a really fantastic link to a great presentation in the chat. And right behind that and following right after that is Women's History Month. And so again, another really good link. And I think both links speak to, although these are great months to really dive deep into that conversation and to recognize what people have done throughout history, I like to take this moment to say, let's not limit those to months. These opportunities to understand the work that people do day in and day out to bring equity to conversations is happening in the work we do day in, day out. Let's operationalize it. Let's operationalize the conversation, the recognition, and the history of it. So I am giving you the links to go they're both thought-provoking, and I feel like it's my duty to make sure that I'm doing that every day. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our panel. I'd like to first introduce you to a great friend of mine, Linda Farmer, who has really blessed us with coming here to help me. She's helped me many times over as the chief Chief Director for DES Communications. I can't tell you how many times she's helped me, but she's helping me again today with asking questions and helping this panel to do this presentation. So thank you, Linda Farmer. And then I'd like to introduce you to two leaders. One, Pat Lashway, the Deputy Director of OFM, who is serving her 34th year in service of the state of Washington. Pat. And two, Tara Smith, who is the newly appointed Director of Department of Enterprise Services. And with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the goals of today's sessions. Again, we invite you to get a drink, relax, sit back in our virtual kitchen as we're going to learn a little bit about two fabulous leaders' journeys who have paved the path for many careers. I'm first going to introduce you to Pat Lashway. And Pat is wrapping up a remarkable 34-year career in state government. After finishing law school, Pat went to work in 1988 as a legal program administrator for the Aging and Disability Services Administration at the Department of Social and Health Services. Over the next 3 decades, she held various positions at DSHS and eventually served for more than a year as the acting Secretary of State at the largest state agency. Did I say Secretary of State? I might have given you a promotion there, Pat, but that's okay. Pat has been instrumental in pushing OFM and the state forward on a number of key initiatives. Under her leadership, our complex One Washington program is gaining momentum, and we have greatly expanded our efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Meanwhile, even as she continued overseeing the day-to-day operations of OFM, Pat played a pivotal role in helping us through one of the biggest challenges we've ever faced as a state. Over the past 2 years, she has served, I lost my train of thought here, as a key advisor to the governor and his executive team on the state's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And as head of the Deputies Director Group, she helped other agencies navigate the pandemic. And this is special to this group here. Pat was recently selected to receive the 2021 Governor's Award in Leadership and Management, a fitting capstone to her career. And with that, we will begin our storytelling session. So that starts with me asking some questions of Pat so that you can all learn a little bit more about her. And my very first question, Pat, for you is there anything you do in your personal time that help you be a leader in your career?
There we go. I got the unmute. Thanks, Yvonne. First, I want to say thank you for offering me the opportunity to do this, and I'm terrified. That's just the way it is, because as I look onto the screen, I know many of you, and you are amazing, strong leaders. So if I have anything to share with you, that will be kind of shocking. And thank you for the opportunity to just see some of you, because on my way out the door, some of you I wasn't going to have a chance to see. So thank you for this. And is there anything I do in my private time? Well, I think my staff would tell you what is terrifying is that I, in my private time, still think a lot about work. And so they often will comment about, gee, really, I thought it was the weekend, and yet you were thinking about, could we do this or could we do that? And though I don't expect staff to respond on the weekend, although in OFM it's a habit, but I will send off something to say, gee, when we're talking about that, have we thought about this? Especially when I'm gardening, hiking, doing anything outside, I try to help my brain let go of work, but that's actually an inspiring time for me to be like problem solving something that seemed really complicated that I couldn't quite get to when the people were coming in and out of the office or this or that dynamic was hitting my desk. So I would say spending time outside has helped me.
It's a great answer. And I think that although we all think about work outside of work, the key takeaway for me, what you just said there, Pat, was just instituting those healthy habits, whether brains are thinking outside or not, super important to fueling creative thought and leadership. Sounds exactly like what the takeaway was there. How do you feel like traits of empathy and vulnerability play a role in your leadership?
I think empathy is just a really important characteristic for people generally, and certainly for leaders. Empathy gives us an opportunity to learn a lot about another person, helps us to know where they are, kind of meet them where they are, and to participate then with them in whatever it is that their reality is and whatever it is they're trying to solve or confront or deal with. So I think empathy as a leader for interactions with our staff, for interactions with each other in the world generally, is just a really valuable opportunity to learn and to serve better. So I would pick empathy over vulnerability. I know that they're interrelated, and that's a good thing. And we have to, as we walk and be empathetic with people, be really actually willing to engage with whoever they are, wherever they are. So that's the one I would pick of those two, and I think it's really critical as a public servant to have empathy.
It is, and I'm going to pause for a moment right there and give everyone a quick insight to my very first meeting with Pat Lashway, who she doesn't know this is my first meeting with her, by the way. So when I worked for DES for Buildings and Grounds, Pat and her team at DSHS did a really nice thing for a bunch of tradesmen and workers who were out in the snow shoveling snow day in and day out, and from the tower of OB2, they could see us out there and decided to do a celebration for us. And with empathy and vulnerability, Pat came down and addressed this entire group of people in a way that was humbling and inspiring. So Pat, I don't know if you knew that was the first time I met you, besides having the luxury to come to work with you. But I thank you for that. You never know who's watching. Always. So Pat lives that, is what the moral of that particular story is. How do you inspire others while keeping yourself inspired about the organization's mission?
Yeah, tricky business, right? I think authenticity plays a really big part in both inspiring me as well as inspiring the people around us. I think we have to be authentic with each other and with our staff about who we are, what we're good at, what we need to grow in, what we've done well, what we need to do a lot better or a little better. I think all those pieces are inspiring because we wouldn't come to work each day if we didn't think that we had the opportunity to do something a little better, to do something to make the state of Washington a little bit better. And that will be, unfortunately, a theme probably throughout my answers. I really believe that is why people become public servants, either at the state level, the local level. Tara will have stories about her experience in Miami-Dade, I'm sure, that we'll all learn a lot from. But I would go with being authentic is really an important part of inspiring all of us and reminding each other what impact is possible, right? What impact you did achieve, but what impact could you achieve? It's an amazing gift that we have when we look at our plate of tasks ahead of us to really step back and go, wow, if we can accomplish a little bit more diversity, if we can accomplish better engagement over in this work group who is tasked with this really hard thing, what does that end with in terms of somebody getting a better service, in terms of government operating a little bit better? In the end, it's inspiring to know that we have that opportunity every day, even though there's all those days where we all agree that inspiration is hard and you kind of got to dig for it. But that's the whole point, right? To being a public servant is we have this incredible opportunity, and that alone is inspirational. And my team's great. My OFM team is great at coming up with new ideas and new opportunities and new ways to help agencies do this, or agencies bring us ideas. And it's like, how can we help with that? How can we make that happen? So that, I think that's inspiring if we are a true public servant, which I think we are.
Super good. And I am totally agree and love the takeaway of focus on the authentic leadership. Really, really good. How do you foster a positive work environment?
Well, if you're an authentic person and you're inspired by your work, I think you foster a positive attitude. And so it starts with us as individuals being positive about what it is we are trying to achieve. We surround ourselves with super smart people, always people that are smarter than ourselves. That in and of itself is inspirational. That in and of itself helps to promote a positive work environment. So I think all of that comes together with saying yes as often as we can, authentically. Yes to, yeah, let's try that. Let's look at that. Let's try to build that. Let's talk to so-and-so about that. And saying no when no is the actual honest response, to which sometimes we have to say, because our leadership is not about being popular. It's about being helpful towards a mission, right? So those are the snippets, I guess, of things that I think of when I think about a positive working environment. There are people that are way smarter than me that work around me, and I'm so grateful for them. They often have an amazing sense of humor, and I'm very grateful for that as well. OFM, when I came there, had a fun committee, which was perfect for me because everyone around me would tell you I am not the first person to think of how to have fun. But the organization needs that for a positive work environment. And so making sure that you have around you and in your organization people who join you in having fun, having a positive approach to work, helping each other to achieve that, saying yes where we can and no where that's the honest truth.
I love it. I think a bit out of order for me is what are the daily ways you keep your team on track with the mission and vision from the question above, with the vision of the organization. So Pat, if I can walk you back a little bit, and I'm hearing it even within the answer that you just gave, the positivity and the people around you, I think are definitely helping in there. But would you speak to that a little bit?
How to keep focused on our mission? Is that, yeah. So I know one of the things that I do for myself to help me keep focused on the mission, and so it is an exchange, is to ensure that I'm checking in with staff, I'm checking in with the other leaders around me, key staff, about what do you need from me? Because the question of what do you need from me engages in what are their challenges? How can I help? Because it's a sincere question. I wouldn't ask it if I didn't intend to help in some way if I could. And it gives the person I'm communicating with the opportunity to remind me of which piece of the mission they are focused on in that day. So it's good for me to know what piece of the mission that person is working on. Certainly I can course correct if I'm hearing like, oh, wow, and that happens. I'm sure it's happened to all of you, where you've said something somewhat randomly, perhaps in a passing or in a meeting, and the next thing you know, someone is actually working on that idea, right? And you're like, oops, probably shouldn't have said that. So there's also course correction, the opportunity there. So to be helpful, and so I think it's an iterative. That's how we keep each other focused on our mission and moving forward.
I love that. I love the theme of mutual respect, and that, Pat, that you're talking about what you're getting from it too. So that's a good reflection for me personally. Are there thought-provoking questions you often ask your employees?
I think I probably just gave you the one that I use the most because it's really how I think about being at work with people and engaging is, what do you need from me? What do you need to succeed? In that is what's not going well or what could go better if you just did a little of this. So that is important, and I ask that a lot. I always ask that of my managers for sure that I have weekly connection with. What do you need from me? It helps direct me and helps break down barriers for them if I can be at all helpful.
I love that. And I think that is thought-provoking. Very much so. What has been one of your biggest challenges as a leader? One of my favorite questions, by the way.
Well, to this group, this will not be shocking. Pretty sure we share it, although there's probably masters in this group as well. Time management. All of our jobs are way too big. That's true for our staff as well. We all have more on our plate and more responsibility than we actually have time on any given day. So yeah, time management. Every one of us has the list of things that we must do, the list of things we want to do, and then the things that just come at us, right, on any given day. And juggling all of that is really super difficult. So that for me has always been a major challenge. Whether I conquered it or not, really not sure. Other people around you could tell you that. But yeah, I think time management when we just have so much opportunity in front of us.
I was going to ask you if you conquered it, so thank you for for taking care of that one right off the bat. We're all looking for that, holy grail there. What is the answer to the time management question? So thank you for that authentic answer. We very much appreciate it. And I think it makes us all feel a little bit human right now, right? When we all can look at each other and know that that's the struggle that we all have. So what are the best ways that leaders can support other leaders, whether within the same organization or different organizations?
I think be generous with each other, as in open yourself to collaboration, seek collaboration, give collaboration. It expands our potential impact together. And it is what we actually need. Some of the jobs that this group has sat in, some of the jobs that we currently sit in are actually very isolating. And it is very difficult to reach out and find the time, and it's difficult to find somebody who might understand it. Actually, in this group of leaders, collaboration and seeking an opinion, seeking advice, seeking, hey, what do you know about this historically? Be generous in giving collaboration and be generous in asking for it. I think that makes a huge difference for us as individuals. It makes a huge difference for what our organizations can do individually as well as together.
Agreed. And I think that as something I could add to that is it doesn't have to be lonely. And I think sometimes we get into the place, right, where we're all working late or working early and we're all there. And then we just have to remember it doesn't have to be lonely, that there's lots of people and there's a community of government around us. I try to actually keep that one in mind too. So I'm so glad to hear you say that, Pat. Thank you so much. What are the qualities you look for? And this is one of my favorite, another one of my favorite questions that you look for in a future employee, and why?
The jobs in state government are hard, pretty much right down to every job. They're hard. So I look for commitment to public service. We can teach skills, we can send people to training, we can help people grow careers so that they gain and develop skills. Those are all privileges that we have as leaders, wherever it is our walk of life is. what I believe you really can't instill in people is the actual commitment to help the state of Washington, to be a public servant, because the jobs are hard. And you either come with the desire to help or you don't. So that is, for me, the first thing that I look at. Secondary to that is just the willingness and ability to engage and to lean into hard things, because that is what government does, is hard work.
Very true. And to end our session and then move on to the next, and Pat, again, just thank you so much for doing this for all of us. What are the resources you would suggest for new leaders?
Each other would be my first resource. Absolutely, each other. Wealth of knowledge. I mean, just look at this group as an example, but look around you in your workspace, right? There is somebody there who knows a little bit of something about everything you touch each day. So each other. I also really think it's important for leadership to really pay attention to what is contextual. So our authorizing environment is quite big, right? And so I'm an advocate for both studying government to the extent that you can observe it, but also what is going on locally? What's going on at the state level? What is our CEO paying attention to? You know, every governor has brought to the state a different focus. That's why they're elected. They have pressures on them that sometimes trickle to agency leadership, sometimes directly. But I think the other resource that I would recommend to new leaders is know what's going on locally to the extent that you can, but certainly know what's going on within the state, because that helps us help our CEO succeed, which is what we're all about. So those would be the primary resources, each other being the top of the list.
I see that was Sarah's answer too, which means that's definitely one that we should be paying attention to, and concur completely, and love the support that I have on this call, the camaraderie we have within this group of GDMA, and then just across every sector of leadership where you see leaders supporting and helping each other. Is a tribute to the networks that we've been building. So Pat, thank you so much for that. I want to thank you for giving us a little bit of insight to the journey, Pat, that you've had within state government over the last 34 years. I personally feel privileged and honored that you said yes. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for paving the way for all of us in the positions that you've held and the way that you've led your career, and for answering these questions for me today with your authentic self. It means the world to us, Pat, and we wish you the best of luck in your newest adventure. We know it's going to be great, and we're happy here at GDMA to have you as a nominee of the Governor's Distinguished Managers Association.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda to give us some insight with Tara.
Thank you, Yvonne. It truly is my pleasure, and I will take your call anytime, but I'm super excited to be here in the virtual kitchen with this illustrious group of women leaders. It's quite an honor. But let me tell you a little bit more about Tara. So Governor Inslee named Tara the director of DES in September of 2021, where she immediately began drinking from the fire hose. And for those of you who don't know, DES is charged with strengthening the business of government. And we do this by delivering high quality services to other state agencies and public entities so they can focus on their core missions. Our 800 employees support the internal work of state government each and every day. And Tara has worked in public service for 18 years. That to me says she's got a commitment to that public service that Pat was talking about. Before moving to Washington, she led a very similar department in Miami-Dade County, and she said to us on more than one occasion that she's found her people. She didn't think that there might be another agency or another organization out there that did all the crazy things that that DES does. And lo and behold, here we are. So we're excited. At Miami-Dade, she managed one of the county's largest and most complex operations with over 1,000 employees, an operational budget of $317 million, and a capital budget of $500 million. And one of the qualities I admire most in Tara is that she brings a genuine desire for connectedness. At DES, we do a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And there's a wonderful opportunity for us to find connectedness at all levels of our staff, all levels of our agency, and connecting with other state agencies and governments, such as what we're doing here today. So I'm super excited for the beginning of Tara's journey in Washington state government. And with that, let's dive right in. So Tara, who are your mentors and why?
Thanks, Linda. Please interrupt me if my video is glitchy, because things are pretty glitchy on my end. So please put your hand up and stop me if I'm not coming through correctly. Okay.
Okay.
Who are my mentors and why? So yeah, I have had the great fortune of having many mentors over my career, which has certainly led to my success. But I would highlight three here because of the impact that they've had on my life and career. The first being Alina Hudak. Alina Hudak is a legend in her own space in Miami-Dade, a bit like Pat Lashway is. When I started working for her, she was an assistant county manager. She's my first boss in the county in public service. She went on to be the first female county manager ever, because that position no longer exists. And just an incredible professional. My second mentor I would highlight is Lester Sola, also in Miami-Dade, my second boss in public service. And then my mom, last but not least. My mom is a fierce advocate for children and just social justice generally, and I've learned so much from her that I've applied to my career.
I love that. That is a very diverse set of folks, and I particularly love that you have your mom on that list. That's very inspiring. So speaking of mentors, what memorable lessons did you learn from your mentors?
Really memorable. Like, I still use these tenets today from Alina. She taught me how to ask the right questions, which has proven critical in my work. And not just the big questions or the deep and profound ones, but the little ones, the questions that you might otherwise think are the obvious ones. And to just not always take information that you're given at face value. That's been really key in my success. Lester taught me to believe in myself because he believed in me first, and that really helped me do the same, and rising to the occasion when opportunities arose. So I try to remind people of that as well today. And my mom she made it normal to always look out for other people, to help others, and especially those who are less able to help themselves.
Oh, very good. Very good. Would you repeat that last bit about your mom? I think you glitched a little bit.
I'm glitching, like a robot glitching. But thank you for asking so that I can make sure that point gets across. My mom, my whole life, made it just normal for me to always put myself in a position to help other people. That was just what she always did, especially those people who are less able to help themselves.
And I see how that really dovetailed with some of the other memorable lessons in asking questions. I think the ability to ask questions, curious questions, both the big thought-provoking ones and the smaller ones, are critical in any stage of our careers. When you're new, you don't know what you don't know, and if you've been around a long time, you might assume you know, and you might not really know. And so I know that that's been a big help to me as I pass through life. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking for a mentor?
You really have to put yourself out there. And I think that it's hard. Obviously, it's harder for some people than others. It's harder now, I think, in the pandemic. We've all grown a little more introverted than usual. But it's worth it. Being very intentional to position yourself with the right people in the right places at the right time. Maybe it's in a meeting with a particular person that you want to mentor you, or a group like this, putting the time out there and yourself out there to make those connections is really important.
Very good. Can you describe a time when you were scared during your career journey? I've been really interested in this question.
Many, 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 many times. In fact, very often in every position I have ever held in public service, I have been scared in many different ways and to different degrees. In fact, I talked with Pat about this recently because I have a magnet on my fridge. Every day I see this little reminder from Eleanor Roosevelt that says, do something every day that scares you. Because even this conversation in this setting in front of so many accomplished professionals is scary, even for seasoned leaders like us. And I love this question because I think it's important for people to hear that. It's okay to be scared. But when you know you're scared and you do a thing anyway, and you push yourself through that, that's how we grow as human beings, as leaders. I say this to my Girl Scouts all the time. But if I had to describe a time, that was the question, that I was very scared in my career journey, I would describe the move across this country. Moving across the country when I didn't yet have a specific job secured. I began that process before a position was in place, and that was scary. But I had put the work into creating confidence in myself over the years by being a successful leader. That helped me have faith and confidence that I would find a role in public service again and rebuild that. And I did that, and I feel very fortunate to have landed in DES with, like you said, Linda, my people and work I've done before.
Oh my gosh, I love how you drew the parallels between being scared in many different ways at many different degrees, and how that you've grown through each of those times in, it sounds like, just the right way at just the right time for that next step in whatever you were facing. And I personally want to thank you for that insight and that vulnerability, if you will. One of the things that that in my job as Chief Communications Officer is to help introduce you to the agency as a real human being, and to help with that whole idea of connectedness. And so I'm loving this conversation. This is great. So is there anything you do in your personal time that helps you be a leader in your career?
Yeah, I study yoga pretty deeply. And by that, I don't mean just what you see people doing on a yoga mat. There is so much deep history and science and philosophy around the sacred texts of the origins of yoga that I've really been, for the past 6 or 7 years now, delving more into. And I do that because it gives me perspective, and that perspective I've found really helpful in the workplace when, in a job like this, and like many of you on this call, when everything you do is urgent and very important to somebody, it's important to keep perspective, right? And so this yoga study that I do gives me that perspective and allows me to make sure I'm showing up for everyone, not just a few people whose problems are really big.
it is important to be able to take a step back and help leaders show up where they need to show up and make sure that we're looking at it in context. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel traits like empathy and vulnerability play a role in your leadership?
Yeah, I loved Pat's answer to this, also about the importance of empathy just as a human being. And I think that's what has naturally made me a leader, a people-focused leader. But vulnerability is something that I've intentionally grown into. Brene Brown's research. Oh, am I still here? Because I'm getting a message. Yes. I am. Okay.
You're here.
Good. Brene Brown's research on vulnerability really was an epiphany for me, and the traits that the world's best leaders have are around trust and vulnerability. So that has played a really big role over my career, and especially, honestly, now being a new director, not just new to this agency, but to this state and this environment. It's important to me that I gain the trust of others. But in order to do that, I really believe, and I'm actively making efforts to make myself vulnerable so that others see that they can trust me first. So hopefully in the end, we'll have that trust that comes from vulnerability. So it's a very present, top of mind skill.
I'm excited
almost every day in my work.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I know that one of the first conversations you and I had, Tara, was around Brene Brown and some of the amazing work that she's done, and the hope that our leadership team can dive into some of her teachings. And so I'm excited about that as a Brene follower. How do you lead brainstorming and foster creativity among others?
So I've tried to find an answer that's outside of the ordinary. Take a strategic retreat every year to look at the big picture and brainstorm. That's important, and I'm planning to bring our group together to do that. But keeping in mind everyone on this call, I think the answer that I would give for everyone's benefit more on a regular, everyday basis is not taking no for an answer when I can get away with that. Not letting things slide just because it's the easier path to take. When I push back a little and set high expectations for other people, like I do for myself, it makes us all get a little more creative about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
We just had this conversation on Monday, as a matter of fact, and so I really appreciated the gentle pushback. And well, why is that? And so it forced me and my team to go back to the table and go, yeah. I mean, I think there are some creative ways around this, and more discussion is needed. So I do appreciate that quality that you bring. How do you inspire others while keeping yourself inspired about the organization's mission?
Yeah, as a public servant, I'm always, I do this work for a reason. And I love this question because I don't think we talk enough about inspiring each other, and that having that as a leadership skill. I think that the way I think about it in my own work as a public servant is inspiring myself by acknowledging the impact of the work that we do in the community, right? Whether it's a new building that will be the first net zero carbon emission building on campus that everyone will be very proud of for decades, or something as simple as the dozen or so letters that we got from third graders recently who took a virtual tour of the Capitol and wrote us all these adorable thank you letters for it. That's the sort of thing that will be maybe one of their core memories of elementary school, and first impressions of government. So I'm really proud of the impact of the work that we do, and I'm very intentional to remind employees to see that bigger picture as well, and also try to feel that inspiration for the work that we do and how it impacts other people in our community.
That's a really good reminder that you can find inspiration anywhere, and you need to keep your eyes out for it.
Yeah.
What has been one of your biggest challenges as a leader?
To my surprise, it's been a big challenge getting to know the 800 or more employees in DES in a remote work environment. I didn't think I was such a in-person leader, but comparing this new leadership opportunity to what I've done in the past, and I've been here not quite 6 months, and I do feel like if we were in person, I would have a stronger connection and relationship with staff. But this remote work environment doesn't allow us to linger before or after a meeting to get to know each other a little bit better. So I've had to be very intentional in trying to create that, and that's been harder than I thought it would be. But to be honest, I think I could say one of the biggest challenges ever in my career is coming in as a brand new director and having to implement the vaccine mandate. That was rough.
I think everybody on this call is probably taking a moment right now to reflect. That was difficult. That was a very difficult thing to do. Yep. Yep. What are the qualities you look for in future employees and why?
So I've always said this when I'm recruiting for positions, because you can't put a price on good judgment. It's priceless. It's the sort of thing that I look for because you don't find that on a resume. You can't decipher that in a 1-hour interview. Even over time in working with someone, you don't really know how important it is until something goes wrong around that person's good judgment. And so I've learned that lesson a few times before, and so it's a quality that you can't really teach. And so when I see even rising leaders who have that just natural good judgment and kind of common sense about their work, I really hold on to employees who have that quality, because it can be hard to find.
This is absolutely intriguing, and I love everything about it. Tell me a little bit more. Is there a way to draw that out or to build? How do you recognize somebody's good judgment and then build on it?
That's tricky. And like I said, it almost stems from that person being in a tricky situation, and then you identify like, wow, that could have gone really badly if they had handled that in a direct manner. But when you see someone approaching a difficult or politically sensitive situation with tact and foresight about what could happen if they respond directly or too quickly or don't take the time to think something through, that skill set is something that you only really find when you're already working with somebody, and having that observation, that skill to observe, is really important too, to recognize that for what it was. I like to give feedback to employees, both positive and constructive feedback, and that's something that I always cover with employees when we have that regular time for feedback. Maybe there was an opportunity to look at your judgment differently, or maybe there was a really extraordinary opportunity, and people don't always recognize that in themselves. That is really an important soft skill in the workplace.
Exactly. And I was asking for a friend. So I appreciate that. Oh, 2 more questions here before I turn it back over to Yvonne. What are the leadership qualities that you continue to work on?
Yeah, that's easy. An easy answer. Not letting perfect be the enemy of good. I can take some time to get a thing done because I want it to be too perfect. Still working on that.
Exactly. Hearts and claps all the way around. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Everyone can relate.
Oh my gosh. Are there any thought-provoking questions you often ask your employees? We may have covered this earlier.
No, we haven't covered this, and I'm
Okay.
very glad that you asked this question because why, yes, Linda, there is. And since you are to you, my thought-provoking question. Okay, so how would you describe yourself, Linda, if you had only one word to use?
Curious.
Interesting.
Interesting. Exactly. Yep.
I love that question because it makes people think, and it's a good way to get to know people, and it can be revealing.
It'll prompt a lot of other questions about that one question and tell me more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
And if I may, Linda, before we turn it back to Yvonne, I want to just take a quick moment of personal privilege to say what a humbling honor it is to be invited to this kitchen, which is shared with the likes of all of you, but especially Pat Lashway. I haven't had enough opportunities to work closely with Pat since I've been here for such a short time. But in the few opportunities I have had, and just in the way that everybody regards her, I have seen in my short time that you really left a mark on this agency, Pat, and on a lot of individuals. And that speaks volumes about you. And I feel a little unworthy to be here at your kitchen table, but just very honored. So thank you, Yvonne, for thinking of me and putting me on the same title as Pat Lashway.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you, Linda Farmer. I do know that I am deeply in debt to you now, and I know you'll take me up on that. So, so that's wonderful. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this pop-up event. I feel like it really was exactly what we're saying, a pop-up event, an opportunity to get to dive a little deeper into some of our leaders that wasn't like super succinct and planned. So thank you all for joining. This will be recorded on our GDMA site with all the other great memorable events that we've had so that you can go back and replay it, grab some of those learnings, reflect on them. I really want to leave everybody with what the invite said at the beginning for this pop-up event. Asking questions is perhaps one of the most effective methods to develop and learn. Just really want to say it again because it's so important, is have the bravery to ask the question. Inquiring of those who do what you hope to accomplish or leaders who might have a different approach is one of the keys to development. So again, could repeat them both 3 times just to really let it sink in. Development takes place as a result of active participation with each other. So congratulations to everybody who's on this call today for the development that you've achieved today by interacting with each other and opening yourself up to this event. Thank you for being our participant with the Governor's Distinguished Managers Association. Thank you, Pat, and thank you, Tara, and Linda, everyone. Have a blessed day. Take care.